Good evening, boyos and ghouls. Welcome back to another Round the Clock Fright segment. My name is Kimberly, and I'm going to be kicking off the year 2022 by reviewing the 2021 series Chucky. Now, I heard about this show being in the making for quite some time. Wasn't sure if it was going to be locked and confirmed for a while, but when I heard they released the show on a few streaming apps, I got super stoked, and I was looking forward to seeing this, especially because they were bringing back Brad Dourif as Chucky. And I know we all went through a time about a couple years back where we had the Child's Play remake starring Mark Hamill as Chucky. And even though, let's say, I love Mark Hamill, I just did not feel as though he fit the role as Chucky, and I think it's because we were spoiled by the fact that Brad Dourif was Chucky throughout the series, from Child's Play 1 all the way up until Seed of Chucky, and then coming back and doing Cursed and Cult, and literally it just wasn't the same without him. So when I heard they were bringing back Brad Dourif as Chucky, I said, not one person could do it better than Brad Dourif, and I was super excited, and I was going to give this show a try after coming back from watching the remake that I was not quite a fan of. If you've seen our past review on this movie, you know that the Round the Clock Frights was not particularly a fan. But I'm going to go ahead and start off by saying that I am not going to be giving any spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen the show yet, but I will be going into details on things that I liked, things that I wasn't particularly a fan of, and just my overall rating on this, well, almost said movie, this series in general. And I am just super stoked. When Josh messaged me and asked me if I wanted to review the Child's Play series, I was like, heck yeah, I have so much I want to talk about this. Super excited to talk about it just because of everything I've seen on this. Like, I literally, when I found out it was streaming on Peacock, I literally took I took one day, watched like 4 episodes, but I didn't get to like really hear it per se, so I ended up having to go back and rewatching it. But I took one night and I literally binge watched all 8 episodes in one night because I was literally hooked from episode 1 all the way up until the very end. And I'm gonna start off by saying right now, with you all just witnessing my excitement right now, I am super excited because overall I really enjoyed this series a lot. This series pretty much picks up right after the Cult of Chucky. I believe it's either a couple years or a few months. I can't remember. I know it picks up just shortly after the events of the Cult of Chucky. And now we're getting introduced to a set of new characters. So we do not see the little girl that we got to get used to in Cursed and Cult of Chucky. But, well, actually, she wasn't only in Cursed. She was in a Cult. That one actually just revolved around Fiona Dourif's character. And now I'm just having a complete stump on her name. Nika. Should have known that. But yes. Yeah, anyways. So this pretty much picks up after the events of the Cult of Chucky. It starts off with us being introduced to a new character. He is a boy that lives on the block. I believe he's lived there for quite some time with his father. His name is Jake Wheeler. And his father is particularly not a very nice man. He is actually played by one of the actors that we all know from a few other horror movies. The one that sticks out particularly to me is Final Destination 1. But we have Devin Sawa coming back and playing well, not coming back in this movie, but coming back into the horror franchise and playing as Jake Wheeler's dad. And like I said, he's not a particularly liked person in this movie. He is a drunk who we kind of pick up isn't very very accepting of very accepting of Jake and his sexuality and the and stuff like that. And because we learn that his mother died, his dad picked up some really bad drinking habits and just did not win Father of the Year. But we get introduced to his Jake Wheeler's backstory, who he is, and just overall you automatically have a sense of empathy towards this character. But it starts off where he's at a one of his neighbors' garage sales. He sees a Chucky doll sitting up on a table, and he says he has to get it because he also likes to collect dolls and pretty much rip their heads off and make like a sculpture out of doll heads. It was interesting. We thought at first that maybe he was going to be a serial killer like Chucky, because he dismantles a lot of doll heads, and we just thought, oh my goodness, we are in for a treat with this character. But far from it. We ended up loving this character a lot, but we get introduced to him, and then later on we get introduced to Jake's aunt, uncle, and his cousin, because right off the bat, events happen where he ends up going and staying with his aunt, uncle. But we pick up on an actor named T.O. Briones. He plays Junior Wheeler, and he's a character that we don't quite like right away. He's got one of those popular, well, actually we do kind of like him a little bit because he does stick up for Jake a lot. Even when his girlfriend, who we start off not particularly liking because she just comes off as that snobby, rich, popular girl who just wants to pick on you and make fun of you. And even amongst all of the teasing, his cousin sticks up for him. So we do end up liking his cousin at first. And I'm going to say at first because events happen to which our minds change. I'm just going to start. I'm not even going to keep going into details about each character on their development because it kind of takes away the surprise. Because I learned that characters in these movies or in this show that we either start off loving, we end up getting some roller coaster rides, and characters we end up loving, we end up hating, characters we end up hating, we end up loving, or we end up hating and staying hating, or we end up loving and staying loving. So it's just one of those things that I felt as though it's the word I am looking for, sorry. I felt as though Don Mancini, sorry, I cannot pronounce his last name. I felt really brought literally all, because he's directed all of the Child's Play movies, set aside the awful remake, but he's done the first Child's Play all the way up to 3, Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Cursed, Cult, and now the TV series. So the fact that he's took many years of diving into these characters or the overall character Chucky and just bringing all of these movies together makes him probably one of the greatest directors out there, because he literally takes a story And there's no plot holes. There's nothing that like goes, okay, is it like, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it fall through? Is there some things to the story that just doesn't align when it continues on? Or do we have a different plot that goes in, but we kind of pretend that it wasn't addressed earlier, that it was something else, but us fans know that's not what happened. He doesn't do that at all. He keeps the story going, and that's what I absolutely love about this. One thing I really loved, and I'm noticing this a lot more with just movies in general, and I love, is that they are diving into the LGBTQ community, and we get a little bit, no, not even a little bit, a lot. And I love this. I just absolutely love this. But with like Jake's character, we end up finding out that he is into one of his classmates. What was his name? Cannot pronounce the actor's name, but Bjorven Amarson. He plays Devin Evans, and this ended up being Jake's love interest in the show. And I just love the development we get with that. It starts off where Jake's more conserved, he's more not really putting out there his sexuality and who he's into right off the bat, and that's because of his father and how his father is. But when we take the father out of the equation, we start to see more of a development with that. And Chucky kind of brings it out too. Even though Chucky's a serial killer, that was one thing I know me and Josh had discussed previously when we talked about this show when I was finished, was that even though Chucky's a serial killer, he had no problem expressing that he did not like anybody who was against it, and that he would stop at no means in killing them. And even though we're supposed to have a hatred for Chucky because he kills people, we also at the same time love him for it. And Chucky kind of helps Jake come out of that, and he starts to feel more comfortable with it, and then he embraces it, and then we start to see teen romance blossom between Jake and Devin, and that is just amazing. I love it so much. Just the storyline, aside from Chucky wanting to murder the whole city and town because he's just a serial killer, we got a pretty awesome story that was put together well by Don Mancini, and I loved it. Now, to talk about things I wasn't particularly a fan of, quite honestly, I can't think of any. I'm just going to say it right now. I can't think of anything. There was a couple of things that kind of just stuck out there, but it was just more of... it's more of those horror movies where people do stuff in the movies and you're just questioning, why did that just happen? Like, you know, like you know what's going to happen, and from a outside standards point of view, you're like, why did you just do that? Like, for example, and this is the only thing I'm going to say, there is a scene in the show, and it's a murder of a person. I'm not giving names out because I'm not going to spoil, but it was kind of an interesting death, but at the same time, I questioned this. I remember telling this to Josh, and I was like, I don't know why they did this. But Dawn did really well on tying that up later on in the next scene when they start having the detectives come in to investigate the scene. But at the same time, I still question why people did this. But we had a scene where they're going to the dishwasher to unload all of their dishes, and they have these butcher knives or steak knives facing up, and the little rack is just like blade up. And my first thought was, who does that? Who loads the dishwasher's blade up? That just sounds like, oh my gosh, my anxiety level would have been hot. My anxiety level was high just thinking about, oh my gosh, what if you set aside Chucky killing you, what if you slipped on something, you fell, and you just impaled yourself with these knives? Like, that just looks like an accident waiting to happen, and I question why they did it. They later on covered that, I guess back in the day, people would put the knives facing up because they felt as though it cleaned the knives better. And my first thought was, no, but to each our own, I guess. But we saw in the Chucky series that was not a good plan, and it ended up being a catastrophe waiting to happen, and it did. The person ended up dying and getting impaled in the throat by all of these knives. Again, it's a cool setup, cool scene, interesting death scene, I would have to say. But at the same time, I was questioning it, like, why? Those are the only things, but I think it's just more of a logical standpoint on, like, why would we do these things? But or like how people hears noises upstairs and then they end up going, I'm gonna go investigate even though I could be murdered. It kind of stands in that same category. So other than that, I really had no problems with this movie. Like I said, acting was tremendous, from the teenagers to the adults. Everything was just spot on. You either loved the character, you hated the character, you loved the character, then you hated the character, you hated the character, then you loved the character. It was all kinds of feelings and emotions that just ran right through you from episode 1 all the way to episode 8. And it was fantastic. The performance, amazing. I can't name one person that I was upset with on their acting abilities. The special effects, again, spot on. Oh my gosh. At times I felt like it was too gory, because there would be a couple scenes where somebody either gets stabbed or something, and you just kind of cringe a little bit, like, oh my gosh. And so I had no problems with special effects. It didn't look too off, too cheesy, nothing. Perfect. Again, storyline, covered it from the beginning. I absolutely love the storyline. We do get a lot of backstory on Chucky, and granted, we get little bits and pieces of his backstory from Child's Play 1 to Cult of Chucky, especially Kirsten Cult kind of covers a little bit of it. But this actually dates back to when Charles Lee Ray was a kid, why he became a serial killer, what made his drive to killing people. And it was kind of interesting. I mean, it's not something you expect, to be honest. Like a lot of these movies where like what do you call it, Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees, they all have motives. Jason was drowned as a little boy in Camp Crystal Lake, and he wants to get revenge. In this case, Hannah Voorhees gets revenge on her son's death, and then he gets revenge on them for killing his mother. So he has a motive, he has a drive. Freddy Krueger, same thing. I mean, honestly, he killed kids, and a whole bunch of parents came after him. So his motives weren't quite set. It only got set when he got murdered, and then he came back. But again, I would have to say that we get a lot of that kind of backstory that ties up on why Charles Lee Ray was what he was. We have a lot of reoccurring actors coming back in this movie, and if it's one thing I love, is when you continue a story but you bring back actors from the previous movies, and it's the same actors too, and they age with us, so we feel as though we're part of this story with them. We grew up with them, and I absolutely loved it. We have Jennifer Tilly, who comes back, plays the wonderful Tiffany, and then we get characters like Fiona Dourif, who ends up coming back as Nika. But at the same time, one thing I didn't notice was that she did come back, and she ended up playing the younger version of her father, Brad Dourif, as Charles Lee Ray. And if it wasn't for the fact that I was told this, I would not have guessed that they had Fiona Dourif do that. So she played that off really well. I mean, her dad is Brad Dourif, so no better person could play the younger version of him than his own kids. So that was amazing. And of course we have Brad Dourif. Again, great actor, we love him. And then we also get Alex Vincent, who comes back and he plays Andy Barclay. And oh my gosh, I'm gonna start off by saying that is amazing. We grew up with this guy. We grew up with him since he was a kid, being little 5-year-old Andy Barclay, who got a good guy doll for Christmas, or not Christmas, sorry, for his birthday. And he goes through all these hoops of people being murdered that's closest to him, or either gets put into an insane asylum. And we get him going into a foster care, and then he goes to military. And it's just amazing that we were able to, you know, grow up with him in the show. And now he's playing older Andy Barclay, who pretty much grows up to be this guy who toughens up, and he has a mission that he needs to go and find Chucky and just kill him. And I absolutely love that. And the fact that they didn't bring anybody else to play him just made it that much better. They also brought back, what was her name? Christine Elise. She played Kyle. Sorry, I thought that said something else. She played Kyle in the second Child's Play as Andy Barclay's stepsister. Yeah, as his or foster sister. She was his foster sister when he was in the foster home. And we know that she never died. She ended up going off doing whatever. We just it never got really mentioned after Child's Play 2. So in fact, she ends up coming back and she works alongside Alex Vincent, Andy Barclay. Just, oh my gosh. It was just great. All of these reoccurring actors coming back to play their roles was amazing. And then the fact that we just get introduced to a lot of new characters. And then we have, of course, Devon Sawa, who plays Lucas. He plays Lucas, and he also plays, because he has a twin. So he plays Jake Wheeler's father, but then he also plays Jake Wheeler's uncle, who Jake ends up going to live with when some events occur to his father. So the fact that he was able to come back and just pretty much play two roles was great. I can literally go on forever and just name all the little things that I loved about this movie. But again, I don't want to give spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen this show yet, because I highly, highly recommend you seeing this if you are a huge Chucky and Child's Play fan like I am. It was amazing. Like I said, I had nothing that I disliked about this show. And the fact that I heard that they are they have signed on for a Chucky season 2, I am stoked and cannot wait. I will literally binge watch it just like I did this first season when it comes out. Again, if you have not seen it, I definitely highly recommend it. My overall thoughts on this movie, it was amazing. I definitely give it a 10 out of 10. This actually is up there with one of my favorite shows of 2021. But those are my thoughts on this Chucky series. Please comment below your thoughts if you've seen the series, things that you like, things that you may not have been a fan of, things you would like to see in the upcoming season 2. And yeah, we look forward to seeing that and seeing your guys' thoughts on this. These are our thoughts, and I hope we've encouraged you to go and dive into the Chucky series, because I definitely highly recommend it. So I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and stay spooky, and we look forward to seeing you for upcoming reviews, videos. We have a lot in store. 2022 is going to be an awesome year. We have so many highly anticipated films coming out. In just a few weeks, we got Scream 5 coming out, and we just got so much more for you guys. Stay tuned, stay spooky, and you guys all have a wonderful night. Bye, guys.